Yeah. Oh, thunder. I cannot kill you. I couldn't kill you.
Oh, you couldn't? I didn't know. Hey, welcome. Thunderstruck, baby. Welcome to IoT Coffee Talk. That was great. Having you sing.
I don't know if Zoom is killing the audio at some point, but yeah, I couldn't hear it. I would be in silence. Maybe it was me like trying to sing Zoom. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it turns out. It could be a complete disaster. You never know with Zoom. So the key takeaway is all these platforms have a long way to go before they're good for IoT Coffee Talk. We have a lot of requirements, probably the most stringent in the podcasting universe. So if the Zoom guys want to give us a call, and we're happy to collaborate with you to improve your product. So
what are we going to talk today?
I don't know. I was thinking, so I attended this conference. It was really cool. It's the Canadian Undergraduate Technology Conference, or CUTC. I was invited. I don't know why. I guess a bunch of the organizers were scouting thought leaders or influencers or whatever to speak at the conference about innovation, technology innovation in Asia in particular. So, but I know a lot of the folks there are very interested in how do I get into some of these big technology areas and hyped areas, right? IoT being one of the big ones. And I don't think all of the reality has trickled down to these young folks yet. They're still reading about all the legendary IoT projects, right? And how glamorous the industry is. But maybe we talk about how do these young folks get in, because they're very interested. And I think it's good that they're interested. Hopefully they're looking forward to doing some tough work, but there's so much good that could come out of IoT. Let's talk about that. And I thought I think you'd be perfect because you've pretty much done everything, coding to the hardware and all that stuff. And then, I've taken a different approach of coming from the top down, right? From the strategy consulting all the way down and meeting everybody where strategy, business transformation, all that crap kind of meets all the wonderful.
So tell me more about strategy on this. What's a strategy for that? Or what do you suggest to these type of people or companies?
Oh, these types of people?
Well,
strategy. Oh, you want me to tell you about strategy? Don't even bother.
Exactly.
If you want to do IoT, don't even bother starting with strategy. But you know what? Let's. I mean, you really do what you, Rob, you guys, and Rick, you guys really deal with the technical stuff down at the ground level. And I think you guys have the more relevant story because PowerPoints are not IoT. These strategy companies that do the IoT stuff, I'll be, people hate me for saying it, but you guys are kind of a joke, and the reason why I'll say this is, I've seen, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've seen the work of a lot of the strategy firms. And until recently, because they realized somehow technology is important, believe it or not, they've started to cultivate the digital side of their business. Before, the technical stuff was one page or half a paragraph, because guess what? They're not comfortable talking about this stuff and bridging the gap. That's just not, number one, they either don't have the technology expertise or they don't have the domain expertise. Most likely they have the domain expertise, but all the technical stuff that you have to learn they just don't have the experience. They haven't done what you guys have done. And so when it boils down to delivering business value, you have to be an architect. You have to understand the technology and how that all interplays and comes together in forming a solution. And then, of course, there's the tough part about being in the technical end and then mapping your technology and your solution to business value, right? So there's opportunities on both ends, but I just don't think starting from strategy, meaning doing strategy work, is meaningful. That's not. Don't call yourself an IoT consultant. You're not.
Well,
and that's coming from someone who's been there, done that, and kind of worked both ends of the candle. You're not. Don't go around saying that you're an IoT consultant. You're not.
Well, yeah, but if service companies are going to win the battle, there will be IoT consultants, right? As community managers, we had community managers some years ago, right?
Yeah. It depends on how you define IoT as well, right? Because a lot of the way that service providers today are repackaging IoT is business analytics. I mean, everything is business analytics because they went from big data. Everything was big data with Hadoop and all these data lakes and all this stuff. Those were the buzzwords. That's like, slow velocity, large volumes of business data.
For them,
that's not
like
the industrial
path,
data.
right?
They're not dealing with all the connectivity issues, putting sensors into. It's like nothing like that. It's a completely different universe. So the young folks who are taking their computer science classes and their IT classes, information technology classes, have to understand this is a different world, and that, quite honestly, these aren't two worlds that have been bridged properly yet, right?
And let me ask you an off-topic question, because I'm really interested about your point of view. Do you think in 20 years being undergrad will be okay? I mean, saying I made these online courses, I'm expert on XYZ, but I never went to the university, for example. This will be okay?
Yeah, I think, honestly.
Where is education going, no?
Yeah. That's a good question. And I don't know why you keep asking my opinion. I want to know your opinion. I talk too much. I have a big mouth. And you know how long I go. And so everyone who's listening, you guys know, first off, we get some people who say, oh, you guys go on too long. This is how we do it. And they go, oh, you should edit it, make it smaller. And, I'm not making fun of you guys. I appreciate the feedback, but okay. So number one, we're lazy. We're not going to edit this stuff. Number two, the fact that we're live and we don't edit helps us build our chops, right? And
exactly.
Bring real content, real emotion, real substance to the discussion of IoT, which is frankly, it's a tough topic. Everyone thinks that it's all rosy, but it's a tough topic. And so we try to keep it real. That's how we do it. And so you listen to the hour of rambling to mine those nuggets, and they're there. Because I honestly, I have to listen back, because sometimes I only hear maybe about 70% of what you guys say, listen. I hear 100% of it. I only listen to about 70% because we're doing this on the fly. But there's a lot to be learned, and for young audiences, I think there's and folks who are trying to get into IoT, I think there's a ton to learn. I think there's going to be a ton in this session. But okay, you keep asking me questions. It should be the other way around. But I'll answer your question, and then you're going to answer all my questions. You're going to do most of the talking. So what was your question again?
Now, do you think in 20 years it will be okay to hire someone who says, no, I never went to university. I just made these and these online courses, and I am an expert on IoT?
Oh, yeah. I think so. I think there's, it's all about practical, right? It's all about practical. Have you built stuff? And you have to really evaluate what is it that you're going to learn through a college curriculum, and then you also have to evaluate, well, how much do the folks who are teaching that curriculum at an academic level, how much experience do they really have?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Honestly, and the reason why I say this is I see a lot of academic papers, and I get it. I believe it or not, you know, regardless of how silly I look right now, you know, with this Charger hat on and, you know, playing all this weird music and, you know, dropping F-bombs with you and Rob and the others. I get PhD candidates calling me all the time, asking me about to review their thesis and their papers. And so I'll read some of these things and I'll go, this is just so not grounded in reality, you know. It's so academic. It doesn't pay tribute to the challenges of actually applying technology. You know what I'm saying? And it even goes as far as having, you know, there are issues with market definitions, and then being able to really clarify the topic before you even start putting pen to paper. And so it makes me wonder, okay, so, and you know, some of these folks who are pinging me are coming from some of the top universities. I kind of scratch my head wondering, okay, how's this going to apply to anything, given what I know you guys deal with at Balena Cloud, what Rob's dealing with in the field right now, right? Yeah. And so I think absolutely not. No.
Okay, let me tell you my story to see if we can get any insights from that. But yeah, I'm computer engineer, so yeah, I know more or less how to program. Mm-hmm. And then when I decided to get into the IoT, I was based in Germany, in Munich. So first thing that I did is I bought like an Arduino. It was 2011, so like 10 years ago, and I bought like an Arduino kit with bunch of sensors, bunch of actuators and cables. And then I decided to at the time I created the IoT meetup in Munich, and I wanted to start creating like a network of IoT people. So I went to the IoT Zurich meetup, like it's 4 hours driving from Munich. And I met there the Zurich community, and I went to an Arduino workshop to learn how to get started with Arduino. And this was the first experience to get like into, okay, if I want to work on IoT, I want to get very hands-on on something that is trendy right now. And at that moment in 2011, so Arduino was like really hot. I think it's still as an educational tool, but this is how I started to get into into the IoT, like not on the data or the cloud perspective, where I was already making an IoT platform, but as into the low level, into the hardware, into the bits and bytes things. And this gave me like a lot of the other point of view, not just the cloud platform and API thing, endpoints, but how hard it is to convert a bit or a byte into and send data to an API endpoint, for example, or how hard it's to have TLS, a security layer on an Arduino, for example, or or why you have to tell to your customers don't use Arduinos on production, for example. So this was how I started on this, but I think today we have a lot of tools. So for example, I bought this to my children, little bits. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah.
So cool. I think in the school of my children, we try to introduce these STEAM initiatives as well. And I think this is related to what we have been talking a lot, like IoT name should disappear, and we should talk about technology. This is IoT's technology, right? Technology Coffee Talk, Coffee Podcast.
Actually, yeah, it really is. I don't know why we call it IoT.
Still.
But I guess it just boils down to laziness. We don't want to rebrand.
Exactly.
You know what's really going to be sad? Like 10 years from now when IoT is like, people go,
no, what the hell is IoT? You know?
That's so old school, right? We're just too lazy to change the logo and the intro. And
what does it mean, IoT? Iceberg, ocean, something else with T? I don't know. Yeah. Can you imagine that? No, so yeah, I think if you don't know, so if you like the technology, you would like to get into really interesting projects and you don't know how to do it. First of all, you need to think, what skills you have or what would you like to do. If you would like to get into technology, I think it's really interesting, to get like a kit, like you can get as well a Raspberry Pi, for example. It's a single board computer. It's kind of it's a computer. It's a little bit more tricky to connect sensors, but it's doable. Arduinos are really nice. Yeah, we are living on these pandemics where you cannot go to a meetup easily, but before the pandemics or after, when we will get into the new reality, if it happens at some point, I think that the path that I did going to communities, or even if they didn't exist, create them, I think this is as well a good point because you meet up people with different skills all together with a beer. Yeah. And then you learn a lot from them and you create this peer-to-peer network that it's super amazing.
So are you saying that you need to have a beer? Beer is a critical element to IoT.
Okay. Yeah, we tried.
Remember that. It's all about the beer.
Actually, my trip to Zurich and on
you're going to have a lot of beer.
In Munich, there is the Oktoberfest. So the original party of Oktoberfest is in Munich. It ends with the Oktoberfest of things. So we met up the day before the Oktoberfest. We hacked some hardware. And then we were going to the Oktoberfest with the hardware. We were drinking with the hardware and testing the hardware there.
So, I just have a funny feeling that IoT is just another excuse to drink beer. It's not the other way around, right? It's not, IoT. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not.
But,
I'm not saying that.
It sounds like you're saying, number one, you have to start off in Germany. Okay. Number two, you have to buy an Arduino and start tinkering around with it and try to solve a problem. And then number three, you have to find an excuse to drink beer and get together with a bunch of people.
Yeah, I think. Well, you don't need to drink beer.
Beer is the adhesive glue that makes everything come together and stick together.
No, I think to have great
middleware.
To have great ideas or to learn, it's good to meet up some people. But we are living these weird moments now in life where that's more complicated and you have to watch podcasts like this, on YouTube alone at home, or maybe not. Social events are great to learn and meet up other people and but as well, this is very technical point of view I have, but on the other hand, there is people who don't know about programming and maybe they want to get into IoT. So I think it's interesting as well to tell them that, hey, it's not all about technical skills and programming, etc. You can also, so I think in the IoT or this vertical of the technology, there is a lack as well of people thinking new business models, how to sell that and so on. So I think there is like a lot of different places where people is needed.
Yeah, but don't you think that's the hard part? That really is kind of like the hard part, right? Because you can learn how to code, you can learn how to engineer or put together a piece of hardware, let's maybe a sensor, even put together a gateway. A lot of that stuff is on YouTube, and wow, you don't even have to. Back in the day, when I wanted to learn a new software language or development language or a tool or a database technology, I had to go and buy the books.
Yeah, if you were lucky that the bookstore had that book, right?
Yeah. And then a lot of the stuff was just generic. You can go to conferences, but they're very expensive. And oftentimes your company wouldn't pay for it, right? It doesn't really fall on your radar unless you're very proactive, like you have been. But you come from it from a totally different angle. Like for me, I was like corporate consulting from the get-go, and everything was about internal training program. So you had these blinders on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you develop some good fundamentals. I mean, it's a great proxy to going to university to learn programming and development and project management and all this stuff, engineering. But you have to have a college, I would say you predominantly have to have a college degree to get a job at one of the big firms. That's the tricky part. But it's a totally different path, but you don't have, I think you get deprived of a lot of things that you had in your experience that I think make you much more grounded. You know what I'm saying? When I talk to you and I talk to somebody at a big SI, you have much more grounded perspective on the challenges than they do. Do you know what I'm saying? And they actually don't necessarily have the answers to problems like what kind of business model should we go to market with? Actually, it's a common problem, across the board. The big guys actually don't have an advantage over you guys. They just have scale, and they can just kind of try to muscle their way, lose a crap ton of money and try to muscle their way into a market, bulldoze their way in. And it doesn't always work. But it's a different learning experience. But I think the technical stuff, I think you can learn. I think the tricky part is getting opportunities to develop experience. But Absolutely. The business model stuff, I mean, if you listen back to any of our podcasts, you get a feel for it. That part is just super friggin' hard, right, for everyone. Yeah. I don't know anyone who's...
But today, I mean, you can, even if a company doesn't give you the opportunity to work with them, you can start to create a Hackster account and make projects, publish their projects, and create some awareness and try to inspire other people. I think that's just enough. No, that tools didn't exist like 10 years ago. I would be much different if I would start today. But I think it's I am really interested on this concept of how your application can inspire other people. Right?
You know what's really weird? Developers are becoming like musicians. IoT folks, there's only a few that make a ton of money, like Britney Spears, right? And Britney Spears, and the rest of them, they make money, but they make them in weird ways that are kind of unconventional. You don't really write about. They don't show up in the news unless they solve a huge problem, get like a huge DoD contract, and they're doing some black project. Top secret project and making millions or something like the thing is that you have to busk. It's almost like you have to, like those folks, the musicians and the street corners that are performing and making money from donations from folks that are listening to them as they pass by. It's kind of like that. And then you actually now have the tools to do it even better. Right?
Exactly.
Because back in the day, it was just that street corner. Now what you can do is you can do streaming. You can do your own little social page. I mean, you can create a community around yourself. And so, you don't have to let the university rejection letter stop you from doing what you need to do. And then, having mentors like you, you could probably really help a lot of these young folks figure a way to make something out of a career in technology in general.
And actually, there are like tools today, like Patreon, for example.
Yeah.
Where I see a lot of developers, like open source developers,
really
like creating Patreons, and people just pay them there. Or communities pay them.
It's really weird because musicians use that.
Yeah, of course. Kickstarter started with musicians as well.
Yeah, because actually I might do that with guitar. Maybe I should do that. No, they have these guys. There's this Davey 105 or whatever. It's an amazing bass player. And then he has like this whole network of musicians that he kind of does these challenges with. A lot of them hire themselves out as they're hired guns. So what they do is you send them the tune that you want to build. They'll just lay down the studio track.
Okay.
I mean, these guys are ridiculously good, they can even hire you out to do the creative. So so there's all these tools that weren't there before. What's funny is that we could probably have some young person come on and then teach us about how to do IoT today. That's probably the really ironic thing where like these old farts sitting there talking about this is how you should do it.
But the thing, following on the different careers that you can have on the IoT ecosystem, so there are a lot of positions. If we talk technically speaking, you need hardware. So you need to know how to design PCBs and make the connections on the PCBs, etc. And all of these things that are made by machines, but someone has to design them. Then you need to know how to about the software running on inside here, operating systems or very low code, the firmware that goes into these hardware. Then you have like the connectivity layer. We have all the connectivity. We have all the APIs. We have the cloud. We have mobile applications. We have dashboards, so data. So you can work in tons of different spaces if you want to work on IoT. The only thing that still bugs me is that the hardware we are still very uncompetitive compared with China. So
what do you mean?
I'm speaking from Spain or from Europe.
Manufacturing or designing?
And even designing. I mean,
really?
you can go to an agency in the US or Europe. Like the one local one. And maybe they are good. They are good engineers and they have some experience. But how many devices they produced?
Yeah. So it's
100,000. Yeah. Then you go to China, and probably they have engineers who design PCBs that has been manufactured on millions units.
Yeah.
So now they give you this trust of like, our engineers design things that don't fail because we prove with that amount of millions of devices.
Yeah.
And that's tricky. I'm not sure how this is gonna end. This local. So how these local agencies are gonna compete with China on this scenario?
That's interesting. But it's interesting. I hear from a lot of when I'm in China and I have beer or drinks with some of my Western friends,
always beer,
who are there. Yeah, always beer. But oddly in China, I don't know. They'll kind of trash Chinese engineering quality. I don't believe it, and to the degree that they talk about how they think it's that bad. But maybe there is opportunity. I don't want to say one way or the other. All I know is that there's some folks that do procure out of China who wish that they had, let's say, German engineers working on the stuff, but it's so cheap in China that they just opt with China, the Chinese firm, local Chinese firm, which tightly integrated with the contract manufacturer that is just right across the street or something like that. So, but that's interesting though. So design houses could be a good place to maybe look to start your career rather than, a big five or, some of these companies that have taken the IoT moniker and have kind of gone to town with it and say, hey, we're the IoT company. And they have maybe a little bit of business, but not doing the real thing. Some of them are. Okay. So not all of you I'm not naming names, so you guys can't come and kick my ass, but you know who you are. And then there's a few of you guys, and you know who you are. You guys actually have an IoT game, and I appreciate you, and he appreciates you. But
no, absolutely, they are. Yeah, I mean, if you want to start a project, it's key to go to these local, design houses and work with them. Then, I forgot other careers that are important, but when you deploy devices like this, in the middle of the field, you need, for example, enclosures and design the mechanics of the box. So this is, for example, something that nobody relates with IoT, and it's super important.
Yeah.
Because it's your device. No, for example, Rob was last week, in the middle of the field installing sensors.
Beanstalks.
So these fields probably they are getting watered twice per day. I don't know. So maybe not. Maybe it's like a water drops or something like that. But let's imagine that it rains a lot.
Yeah.
So you need a special box for these sensors that, it's IP65 or IP69. But if it's IP69 and there is a lot of sun, you need to leave the vapor of the water inside So there are a lot of tangencies on the IoT where people can work, and it's not just related on programming or on connectivity, but something like this on the packaging. So if you do a consumer product, what's the experience of opening these?
This is a really good discussion. I don't know why, but everything you're describing it's just refreshing, because you're laying out how big, quote unquote, IoT is and how complex it is, and the challenge that the industry has of channeling that complexity into something that's simple and economical at a very, very low level. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like the physics are reversed, and it's it really is kind of like a leading edge type of environment. It's like a crucible, you have to have really smart people thinking through this stuff, the challenges, and how do you get those folks paid? And then can you position them to solve the big problems? I guess maybe we talk about it all the time. So for those of you who are going, oh, wow, this is a really cool episode. I wish I could listen to more of these guys like rambling on and talking mindlessly about IoT stuff. I wish there was more. We have like 62 other episodes. So just subscribe, and then you'll get annoyed by us every week, right? On a regular cadence. We're pretty good about this stuff. But I think you're bringing up it's just been really cool how you've laid out that landscape. That's like I think that's the nugget for the young folks that are looking at getting into IoT.
Let me give you another career that you don't connect with IoT, but if you start working with design houses or with companies that make products, you will need to deal with the logistics.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe the PCB is coming from China, the boxes, and you need a warehouse, and you need people who manage the warehouse and who deal with the logistics, the change of the prices, etc. So I mean, this is still
supply
IoT,
chain managers.
Right?
Yeah, you could be a supply chain manager. Yeah.
Exactly.
And still be an IoT. Actually, the more we talk about this, the more I'm convinced there's no IoT.
Exactly.
You're right. We have to figure out this idea that there's the IoT. It's about
it's in our heads.
Yeah,
it's in our minds.
In our heads. But it's too early in the morning to think that profoundly. It's a deep topic. You might even need
PM here,
to
so
use drugs to think through all this stuff.
Yeah, that could be a good session, with
drugs?
With Rob and David and Rick.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say drugs. I mean, a good brainstorming session.
Yeah. Okay. All right. With beer.
Exactly. Beer. Yeah.
Would be the best in Barcelona. Actually,
whatever.
Blackberry mojitos in the seedy part of town, Poblesec. Which you say seriously, you don't go to Poblesec at all. You know, they have a couple of really good restaurants. I mean, there's more than a couple of really good restaurants. You know what I'm saying?
I go, but I don't like to go because it's hard to park there. So I don't usually go by.
Take the subway. Come on, man. I mean, you know what? Whenever I go to Barcelona, I always walk across the entire city. And I probably walk through neighborhoods that you probably think I shouldn't walk through, but I friggin'
if you go
love
to
walking through Barcelona.
But this is something very touristic, right? If probably in your own city, you don't walk.
Yeah.
To go, to places, maybe.
Yeah.
How do you go to supermarket? You walk to the supermarket, or you go by car?
Bike. No, it's totally different though. I live in a completely unwalkable place. But when I used to live downtown in San Diego, I never used my car. It was awesome. I loved it. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have a subway system, but we had a trolley. So anytime I needed to go to the ballpark or whatever, we'd take the trolley because you don't want to deal with parking. So actually, it's your reason for not going to Poblesec.
Maybe it's lazy.
The reason, huh?
Or there are other restaurants in.
Oh, I know. But I just like those really awesome little dive. Actually, Sarah 23 is not a dive. It's a pretty nice restaurant. I think it's just one of those hidden gems. Anyways.
I will check later if it still exists.
I think it will. All I know is that during Mobile World Congress, that place just gets packed, and you know how it is. Every single hotel, every house that's available gets rented out, right? Or and so you have people that get to explore restaurants in all the weird, maybe the less nicer areas in Barcelona. But it's also great. And I've had to stay in Poblesec actually a couple of times. There's a lot of cool stuff there. But I think maybe locals they have this
parallel
about the area. Right.
Parallel, it's the main street of Poblesec, and historically is where there were like theaters and like the Moulin Rouge, like the. So it was like a place where with a lot of nightlife historically in the last 100 years.
Well, it's a great location though. I mean, you have to admit, right? It's not that far away from the water and.
Exactly.
Anyway,
let me get back to the topic. Last question. I love to ask you questions, and I'm gonna get into a topic that you love as well. So, so what would you suggest to a company if they need to find developers, or they need to reach new communities? For example, do you think that new developers are, because it's hype, the blockchain, for example, are going more towards that direction than IoT? Or where do you think that developers are going now?
Where do I think
Yeah.
Developers are.
Or what do you think it's now hype for developers?
Oh, I honestly, I think the practically speaking, I think it's just all the same stuff. I don't think anything ever changes, even with blockchain.
Okay.
I mean, back in the day, object-oriented databases, and I mean, that's basically what these graph databases are, right? I thought they were going to explode, and when I was starting off in software development, I mean, that's what I thought was going to be a huge thing, because I did a lot of relational database development. I'm going, God, imagine if you can do this. And guess what? It didn't really happen. Actually, Oracle hijacked the whole thing and they created a friggin' blob data type, and then they stuffed, they basically did what actually AWS is doing with AI services. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not exactly the same, but in terms of a methodology of taking something that's complex or competitive or leading edge and wrapping into something that you're already doing, or packaging it into something that's conventional, easy to consume. That's what Oracle did. And AWS is kind of doing that with now AI. So I think, okay, so there you go. AI. I think a lot of folks are talking about it. I think about 95 to 99% of the people who talk about it don't know what they're talking about. Which is kind of normal. They took a 101 class somewhere and said, oh yeah, but then what they're really doing is they're taking a course from somebody who used to be a BI instructor, did, business analytics, and maybe done some statistical analysis, and they repackage that as AI. So you see a lot of this really fat fringe stuff. It's actually a fat fringe of AI excitement. And then there's that core, that the real hardcore AI stuff. The guys who basically build the frameworks and the service architectures, and the models, doing all the hard stuff. I'll say if you're going to do that stuff, it probably helps to have some really, solid academic training and all that. Number one, you have to be really good at math, kind of psycho at math. Most people are not.
And statistics. Yeah.
Statistics. You learn a lot of that at an advanced level in college. So, I mean, it's really tough to learn all that stuff off of YouTube, right? Quite honestly.
But it's doable. It's hard when you realize. Yeah, it's hard when you realize that you had so bad teachers, but that it's super important. No, that those bad teachers make me hate some of these things that are so important now, and I'm using every day.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, and so I think
don't hate things.
Yeah, but I think that's where a lot of developers are going. But most of what the big guys are doing, and I think maybe this is their advantage across a lot of different ICT domains, is that they're packaging the complexity. So they have some really smart people that are packaging things into really simple things, and then they're embedding them into stuff that all developers most developers, 99% of developers are good at, which is just regular coding. So it's just really an API, and then that they're interfacing with. They're not really doing AI. It's more of a hybrid software development or software design and architecting. But they're tapping into an AI service. And then there's the data scientist folks, and that's going to be a much smaller community of folks that are either defining the service, training the models, doing whatever, and then you can deploy that model on a device or whatever, and then integrate it with your software. I think that's sort of like the emerging pattern, especially IoT, right?
Yeah.
Because we're trying to put inference, like the AI, the cognitive capabilities, as well as the analytics out at the at the edge, right? So I think that's the thing that may be changing, and that a lot of developers are finding interesting, which is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
It's where things are going. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies have this mission of reduce friction, right? And that simplifies a lot.
Yeah.
Today, it's oversimplified to do a lot of complex operations like this AI that you mentioned. That's pretty interesting. And probably, as you say, most of the developers, maybe the new developers, maybe they are at Amazon, or they are playing with Amazon products, Azure, etc. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like SageMaker and all the products that AWS and Microsoft and IBM and all these big guys have are key tools, right? They're transitionary tools that, and the thing is that their platforms are, their platforms are becoming sort of these massive toolkits, right, to do this hybrid software development. And what I mean by hybrid software development is all the conventional stuff that is familiar with all this AI stuff that 90% of developers, it doesn't matter. Just because you're a coder doesn't mean you're good at math.
Exactly.
Stuff. Being able to at least, take that service, tap into it, and then work with a data scientist who does all the hardcore AI, ML, DL stuff that actually shapes and defines that service, right? So there's AI service design, right? That's a different domain. So if you want to do that, you probably want to go to college for that. But there's still this huge opportunity. That's like literally service development and product development, right, from AI perspective. And what developers can have an opportunity to do is apply all those tools and technologies, and then that's a whole different world. But you're not really doing AI. You're just applying it, so there's a difference. I think if you bump into me and you say that you're an AI person, you'll get some of those tough questions, and I'll be thinking something in the back of my mind.
You always can ask.
Really do. Yeah.
What do you mean?
That's what I'm an AI person. That belongs to some folks who have studied really friggin' hard to really truly be AI folks. You have to give them props.
Yeah, you always can start with what does it mean, intelligence, right?
Yeah. And analytics is just that's intelligence, but it's not intelligent.
Exactly.
There's a difference.
By the way, can I make a shameless plug? I will be a teacher of the Things Network summer school. So in August there will be a summer school.
Yeah,
I think it will be in Coursera or something like that. So I will teach how to deploy a LoRaWAN gateway in one click. Yeah.
So if you're one of these young folks who wants to get real with IoT, that the IoT that doesn't exist, this man is generous. It's not a shameless plug. It's a generous plug. Come on, man. That's awesome. And follow Marc and follow Belena and follow IoT Coffee Talk. And if you've made it this far, you're a champion. Wow, you must really have nothing to do right now if you got this far.
Or you're running a lot, yeah.
Yeah, and this is a long ass episode too. But I don't think we said too many bad words, so we might not
exactly
for this one. But yes, remember, subscribe. www.iotcoffeetalk.com, And we're going to see you next week. And next week, hopefully, we'll have Vinky on and we can talk about IoT performance. Then you guys can nerd out and I don't have to say anything because I'm just going to listen. I just want to listen. I talk too much. I listen to these podcasts and it's just like, man, why the hell do you talk so much? You got to let Marc speak. Then
it's my fault.
Behold, you ask questions. You ask me questions. It's like, no. Other way. I should be asking you questions.
All right.
Okay. All right. Well, take care.
Have a good week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.